think, is it your opinion that there are boomers? My dad fought in the Vietnam War. My dad is, one of these Lutheran church going, not anymore. He doesn't go to church anymore because he sees through religion for what it is right now. I mean, religion has been completely occupied, which is different, by the way, than your spiritual connection with your Lord and Savior. Religion is a farce as far as I'm concerned. I am a Christian saying that religion is a farce and that we need to declare war on these Zionist Schofield Christian pastors and then come for their flocks. They're false teachers and they're leading people directly to the lake of fire. But my dad fought in the Vietnam War. If he were to realize this, or if he were to be told this, do you think he would believe you? Is the programming that deep? That these boomers, but I don't know about that. I got to push back because look, you've got these VFW people that aren't even allowing me to come and speak in Norfolk, Virginia. And you've got the LVA, the Liberty Veterans Association, that's capitulating and kind of going soft and bowing to these Jews and saying, well, we don't want any controversy. We just want to get together every year for the last 53. We just want to get together every year and have some beers and then go back to our normal lives and go golfing. I just don't think that that's the mantle that I want to pick up.
Well, I can't speak for every boomer out there, Stu. I've talked to a couple boomers about this, and once I connect the dots for them, they're like, oh my gosh, you're right. It blows their mind because they grew up their whole lives. A lot of boomers have carried forward this idea of that Vietnam was pointless. Why were we over there? A lot of them are confused about it. They don't understand it. Of course, you have the hardcore, holdouts that are like, America, right or wrong. But once you connect the dots for these people, they're like, oh my gosh. So let me connect some more dots for people. Eugene Rostow, this Undersecretary of State, this Russian Jew who defended the legality of the Vietnam War and was the co-champion of the war alongside his brother, the architect Walt Rostow. Eugene Rostow is the guy who suggested the Warren Commission to LBJ. So again, JFK gets assassinated on November 22nd, 1963 by the Israelis and the Jewish mob, okay? 2 days later, less than 2 days later, Eugene Rostow has already reached out to Nicholas Katzenbach, the Zionist assistant or deputy attorney general under RFK. He's reached out to him. He's reached out to Bill Moyers, a special advisor and assistant to LBJ. And he reached out to famous journalist Joseph Alsop of the Washington Post that was owned by the Jewish Graham family. He reached out to these three men, and he was quite strident and insistent that Lyndon Johnson set up a special commission to investigate the assassination of JFK. Literally 2 days after the assassination, this Russian Jew, who wasn't even in government yet, was pushing hard for there to be a special commission, which came to be known as the Warren Commission. Now, the Warren Commission is named after Supreme Court Justice Earl Warren, who had been a law student of Eugene Rostow's at Yale Law School. Furthermore, Allen Dulles, the disgraced former head of the CIA, whom JFK had fired from the CIA, was placed on this commission also by Eugene Rostow's recommendation. And we now know that Allen Dulles was being blackmailed by the Mossad since the 1940s. So what did you have here? You had this Russian Jew, Eugene Rostow, who basically engineered the Warren Commission and got the former head of the CIA, who had been fired by JFK, placed on the Warren Commission at the behest of this Russian Jew, okay? And Allen Dulles was being blackmailed by the Mossad. So they got their guy onto the Warren Commission to engineer that whole cover-up, okay? Later, once LBJ is reelected, Eugene Rostow is then brought on board as Undersecretary of State, and he helps prosecute this Vietnam War. Now, Eugene Rostow also is an ardent Zionist. And he, throughout his entire career, he basically denied even the existence of the Palestinian people, okay? And he issues his own UN security resolution in 262 that basically denies or drops the idea of Palestinian right of return, which JFK had also supported. JFK had supported Palestinian right of return, UN Resolution 194. Eugene Rostow replaces that with another memo that drops the whole idea of Palestinian right of return. So that's who's running the Vietnam War. These pro-Israel Zionist Russian Jews, that's who's running the Vietnam War, okay, in the Johnson administration. At the same time, they're promoting Israel, they're promoting Zionism and defending Israel. And then this American military-industrial complex buildup that is a direct result of the Vietnam War is what is able to backstop Israel in the 1967 Six-Day War and the 1973 Yom Kippur War to help Israel gain ascendancy and supremacy over all its Middle Eastern adversaries. Okay, so I know this is mind-blowing to people, but you need to expand your mind and see what was going on. This is what was happening in Vietnam. It was a Jewish plot. Now, here's the other side of this, Stu.
I got 5 minutes.
Okay, who led the anti-Vietnam War movement? Jews did. In fact, it was so famous, and their involvement in the anti-Vietnam War movement was so strident and so famous and so strongly associated with them that there were these special buttons that you can get online and even Google this. There's these special buttons that said you don't have to be Jewish to oppose the Vietnam War. All right. That's how Jewish the anti-Vietnam War movement was. It was basically founded by a man named Noam Chomsky. He founded the anti-Vietnam War movement. Noam Chomsky, Howard Zinn, Mark Rudd, Jerry Rubin, Abby Hoffman, all these militant left-wing Jews. Okay. And we have to ask ourselves, when Jews organize to protest something, or when they organize for something, are they only do it for really 2 reasons. They're either opposing a Gentile agenda that hurts Jewish interests, or they're introducing fake opposition to a real Jewish interest. So we have to ask ourselves, when left-wing Jewry in America organized to oppose the Vietnam War, is it because they were opposing this Gentile enterprise, or was it fake opposition to a secret Jewish enterprise? Okay. Now, here's one of the giveaways. These same Jews who were protesting the Vietnam War said nothing about Israel. There it is. Yeah, they weren't protesting Israel's war in the Middle East, Israel's aggression against their adversaries. And their talking points, too, their talking points were the United States is embarking on Western imperialism in Vietnam. It was European colonialism. It was white supremacy. It was Western imperialism. Those were their talking points of what was happening in Vietnam. But what do these same people now, even these very same Jews like Noam Chomsky, are active in the anti-Zionist movement now? And what do they say about Israel? They say, well, it's Western imperialism, it's European colonialism, it's white supremacy, always deflecting away from Jewish supremacy and Jewish aggression. Okay? And that's what they're saying now. They're saying that Israel is a Western imperialist, European colonialist state and white supremacy. And they were using the same talking points during the Vietnam War era, but they weren't using those talking points back then to attack Israel. Okay, they were protecting Israel. The anti-Vietnam War protest movement was to deflect American attention away from Israel, keep the focus on Vietnam, okay, and generate this Jewish fake echo chamber, this dialectic where you're either for or against the Vietnam War. But whichever position you took, you weren't looking at Jews and you weren't looking at Israel. Okay, so I
got to wrap it right there, and that's a perfect place to wrap it, actually. And you can find all of this information over on Sam Parker's X account. He does such a great job of actually just like breaking it all down, going through all of the details, laying out all of the evidence. These aren't anti-Semitic tropes, okay, that somebody's just making up any of this information. This is real information. If you want that real information in greater detail, and to further the conversation, you should be having this conversation, by the way, with your dad or your grandpa or whoever it was that served in Vietnam, because we need these people to know, as evidenced by the Norfolk VA.